So again, my name is Alyssa DeFilippo. I am the program manager for Connections California at Parents Helping Parents, and you are at Regional Center Clients is the paid internship program for you. Just a little bit about Connections California. We are an online resource and information hub for transition to adulthood and adult services. We have a pretty robust e-learning library. We have live webinars in spring and fall semester, probably about 90 to 95 a year. And we are very grateful that professionals like our presenter this evening give of their time to help educate all of us in the Connections California community. So this evening, Kathryn Boroff, who is the Resource Development Quality Assurance and Employment Specialist at Far Northern Regional Center, serves people with disabilities in several of our Northern California counties, helping them achieve their person-centered employment goals. So without further ado, I will stop sharing. Kathryn will share and we'll begin. Thanks everybody for coming.
There we go. Okay.
We're good.
So
all right. Thanks.
So like you said, my name's Kathryn Boroff. I'm the employment specialist with Far Northern Regional Center, and we're going to be talking about paid internship program and the community integrated employment. What kind of got all of this employment attention started was back in January of 2014. California enacted a bill that stated that the policy of the state of California provides opportunities for integrated competitive employment, making that a priority for working age individuals with developmental disabilities, regardless of the severity of their disability. So it's been kind of a long process getting these internships going. That's a lot of mumbo jumbo big words. So basically what that means is real work for real pay in the real world. The goal of employment first is to provide opportunities for individuals who live in California with intellectual and developmental disabilities to prepare them for and participate in competitive integrated employment. Again, this is just making meaningful integrated employment an objective for every adult individual who wishes to work and receives services from a regional center. Like we said, I am from Far Northern Regional Center up in Northern California, and kind of the running joke between regional centers is that there's 21 regional centers and 22 different ways to do it. So that being said, I'm going to be presenting kind of our experience and our interaction with job development and paid internship and community integrated employment, but a lot of the specifics and nitty gritty you'll want to actually reach out to your regional center and or your service coordinator for their specific process and their specific procedures. All regional centers have employment supports that help their individuals work in their community, and all regional centers have employment specialists that work with the different job development agencies and vendors to support individuals to help them achieve job experience, learn job skills, and access the jobs of their dreams. So again, my title is the RDQA Resource Development Quality Assurance Employment Specialist. And what an employment specialist does is act kind of as a facilitator between service coordinators, vendors that work through the regional center, individuals that we support and that we serve, and then the regional center billing. The employment specialist also presents and gets approval for the different steps and different stages of various employment support at the community service committee meetings, helps direct authorization setup so that everything's funded and set up on the back end with the service coordinators, and also supports the service coordinators to get clarity as needed through each of the steps. Another thing that the employment specialist does is to track, report, and update Department of Developmental Services on employment in the regional center catchment area. There's already been a handful of acronyms in the previous slides, so I figured I'd just take a minute to go through some of the acronyms that are going to be used tonight. That's kind of some of the supportive employment language. The first one there being the IDT, which is an interdisciplinary team meeting. The PIP stands for Paid Internship Program. A job coach is the one-on-one help while the individual is at their place of employment. CIE stands for Community Integrated Employment. CSC is the Community Service Committee. SC stands for Service Coordinator. A vendor or a provider means the community professionals who work with the regional centers to provide direct services. RC stands for Regional Center, and DDS stands for Department of Developmental Services. So some of the perks of accessing the paid internship and getting some supportive employment are it gives individuals the opportunity to explore different career paths. It helps them have the opportunity to learn new skills and talents in the workplace. Individuals are then allowed to earn their own money, make friends and hang out with others outside of their home, contribute to their community, increase their confidence, self-esteem, and also increases their independence. And it also helps practice timeliness and keeping a schedule. Going back to PIP. So PIP stands for Paid Internship Program. And that is up to 1,040 hours or 365 days of employment in the community, whatever comes first. In a PIP, individuals get access to the support of a job development agency and job coaching as needed. They have the opportunity to learn different job skills hands-on, where they're paid at least minimum wage. And every regional center kind of has different employer of record that they use. With Far Northern, we specifically use an agency called O2 Staffing, where the wages for the individual are actually paid through the employer of record, which again for us was O2 Staffing. So your regional center would probably have a different employer of record that they use in their internship program. CIE is Community Integrated Employment, and it is work in the community hired by an employer in the community. Again, where the individual is paid at least minimum wage, they can be working up to 40 hours a week or part-time. There's opportunities for advancement. It includes benefit packages, just like everyone else, and the wages here are paid by the employer. So that's the difference between the PIP and the CIE, is that in PIP, the wages are paid for by the regional center, whereas in CIE, the wages are paid by the employer. The main thing to note here is that a lot of people think that if they get nervous of ending or transitioning out of their internship program, thinking that they're not going to have access to help and support, but that is not true. So even if an individual is hired on in the community by an employer, they can still have access to a job coach and job development as needed. So it's not like once you get hired on, we're like, you're on your own. So that's kind of something to keep in mind. So main qualifications are being 18 years or older, or at least having your high school diploma or certificate of completion achieved. So unless some students end up going to school till they're 22. So just making sure that high school diploma or certificate of completion is achieved to access the support of these services. It's important that the individual has an interest in work and getting help to do so, be a regional center client, and then having an employment as a goal or a support need in their individual program plan or IPP. Getting started with the PIP is more or less reaching out to a service coordinator, letting them know that one of the goals of the individual that's supported by a regional center is to explore employment opportunities and different options. Then the service coordinator would send a referral to the job development agency that individual chooses. At our regional center, they include me as the employment specialist kind of in that whole referral process and in each of the steps so that I can help, again, support the service coordinator, support the individual and the job development agency through the different steps and hoops that we jump through with all of these. And then next is coordinating that IDT meeting, which again stands for interdisciplinary team meeting, with the job development agency and whoever is the best support to that individual who's trying to get involved with the internship. Circling back to IDT meeting, again, IDT meeting stands for interdisciplinary team meeting, and more or less that's just getting everyone at the same table. So the individual who is getting support from the regional center, the job development agency, family, friends, support staff, or any other people that the individual desires that knows them best, that would represent them and kind of brainstorming different things that they may be interested for employment, things that they like, things that they're good at, experiences that they've had or haven't had that they're looking to explore. The whole point of the IDT meeting is so that, again, everyone's at the same table, where the job development agency goes over what their program looks like, the timeline and how that looks when they're supporting the individual with employment opportunities. And then lastly, beginning to explore job interests of the individual and just starting that conversation and beginning to have that open communication with all parties with the timeline and next steps so that everyone's in the know of what comes next. From there, from the IDT meeting, every job development agency has different tools that they use or ways that they get feedback about what the individual's interests are, likes are, dislikes are. Some job development agencies use a pre-employment training or like a prep academy where they work on a bunch of different job readiness skills, job readiness tasks. DOR and a couple other job development agencies use like a social skills assessment tool. Some agencies use a positive personal profile that helps them on one page gather information that could be useful, and where they can learn all the different soft skills that an individual has coming in, or if they don't have any, knowing that that's where we're starting, so that there's a good starting point to begin exploring. So we've talked briefly about PIP and CIE. In PIP, if an individual after the IDT meeting is found to be a good fit for a paid internship program, they would have skills that could be supported on and built on to possibly be hired by an employer. And they would have an interest in working, but are unsure to do so, or unsure of how to do so, where to apply, and they need help to do so. Whereas if an individual was found to be a good fit for community integrated employment, they usually would have some sort of experience with working or volunteering and prove that they have some of the soft skills underneath their belt already. And that they're comfortable working and that they want to learn something new to expand knowledge. The last section potentially is that after the IDT meeting and the job development agency evaluating a referral, that they don't feel like they're able to support that individual, and that they just don't feel like that they might recommend that the individual explore some other support services. And those reasons can totally vary. Obviously, some examples could be behavioral concerns, the lack of interest in working, which we have a lot of those, where parents, families, or out-of-home placement agencies really want the individual to be working, but when it gets down to it, the individual doesn't have an interest in working, or they just graduated school and they just want to chill for a minute. So sometimes that is the option too, that the individual who is looking to explore the PIP or CIE needs to actually have that desire to work. And sometimes they're just not an appropriate fit for the program. So that paid internship program path, the job development agency submits like a PIP request to the service coordinator that needs to get approval at the community service committee meeting. Again, this is how Far Northern does theirs. Every regional center probably has it somewhat different, but there's some sort of approval process to get the ball rolling. Then the job development agency would work side by side with the individual in their job to help them learn tasks and skills. Ideally, kind of the whole point of job coaching is that they would ultimately fade out, but that they're needed, or they're there as needed. However, if like new tasks are assigned, then the job coach could step back in to help as needed. Again, the main thing here with the paid internship program is that the wages are funded by the regional center. Under the community integrative employment path, the job development agency helps the individual to be prepared for employment through help with resume building, practice interviewing, making connections with potential employers, and ongoing support as needed. Again, job coaching is still available and funded through the regional center to support individuals in the community integrative employment, but here the wages are paid by the community employer. And again, that kind of last option is that due to whatever other concern or whatever situation that the individual might not be a good fit for PIP or CIE, and that some other support option might be a better fit. And that's not to say that that's forever and for always, but just at that time, whatever's going on might not be a good fit. So after you've had your IDT meeting and kind of figured out what path you're going on, the job development agency is going to work on what they title customized employment, where they're working to build connections and find perfect matches that meet the interest and skills of each individual that they support. Again, these job developers help with practicing interviews, helping to build resumes, helping establish schedules and calendaring all of their different obligations. And a lot of job development agencies also practice a lot of social skill practices or, The role of the job development agency, which we've touched on some, but making sure to touch base with the individual who's being supported in employment. They provide job coaching supports as needed, touch base with the employer and kind of be that middleman, support with timesheet submission, and then help navigate and direct as complications or conflicts may arise at the place of employment. A job coach works one-on-one with the individuals to help them learn their responsibilities hands-on. They act kind of as a shadow or a mentor for the job training, the support and redirection as needed. Some job coaching tasks include helping take notes as needed to learn different job tasks, breaking down instructions, helping redirect as needed, providing reminders for timeliness, advocating for breaks while the individual's at their place of employment, help with managing emotions, stress, or anxiety, helping to learn proper business etiquette, understanding and following the schedules and deadlines that might come to play in their place of employment, and improve workplace socialization skills and help develop and grow different work skills. Again, like I said, every regional center has their own what they call employer of record that is kind of the middleman that pays those individual wages. Up at Far Northern, we use O2 Staffing as our employer of record, and they pay the individual wage while the individual is in the internship. They also have like a fee for processing and managing those wages. And then if the job coach is hired through the employer of record agency, they would also fund, or they'd kind of be the middleman for those wages as well if they're not hired through the job development agency. The kind of cool thing of having the employer of record is that they take on the liability for the individual working at their place of employment, which can sometimes be one of the barriers for employers for hiring. So this kind of provides an option where the individual has an opportunity to learn, but the liability is not on the employer and they're not paying for their wages. So we all know that a lot of our individuals can get jobs, but keeping those jobs for longer durations is another struggle and another difficulty. So DDS came up with some incentives for the job development agencies to help incentivize or just help provide, support for the job development agency. So in the paid internship program, there's 2 different bonuses. If the individual stays employed for 30 days and for 60 days, then there's a bonus to the job development agency. And then if the individual stays in their community integrative employment with job development support at the 30-day mark, the 6-month mark, and the 12-month mark. Some examples of various different places where we have individuals placed in the paid internship program or in community integrative employment. Up here are Ace Hardware, variety of different grocery stores all over the North State, different automotive shops, churches, horse stables and ranches, county behavioral health, regional stores or retail stores, wellness centers, fitness centers and gyms, Tractor Supply, schools and daycares, a variety of different restaurants, whether they be dine-in, fast food, pizza joints, different receptionist jobs, self-employment, working at a bowling alley, and that Salvation Army. Again, these are just a handful of ideas that were on the top of my head when putting this together. So I'm kind of coming to our end here. I'm trying to keep it short and sweet and to the point. The goal of the paid internship program is to provide support for individuals to get hands-on learning experience to get them hired on and working out in the community. Again, the regional center covers onboarding costs for the employers to work with employees who may need more help by funding their wages and funding job coaching as needed. So it just provides opportunity for that hands-on learning without employers having to fund the wages in the internship program. And then we're coming to our end. So thank you guys all so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to attend tonight. And I believe we've got it looks at least a handful of questions in the chat already.
Yes, we do. And just as promised, I have dropped into the chat links to a Spanish evaluation and English evaluation, just 3 questions each. If you could please click on it and answer them, we'd really appreciate it. I tend to get a little annoying with asking people to keep doing it throughout the Q&A, just because I like to get, about 75% or 80% of the folks on the Zoom to answer the evaluation questions, in real time while we're here. So I might be asking again, but why don't we just start with the questions, Kathryn?
There we go.
To qualify for these services, should the student graduate school at age 18, or can they stay in school until age 22?
So like access to all other regional center supports and services, we're the payer of last resort. A lot of school programs have built-in employment supports and job shadowing experiences. So it just is, in order to qualify for the access of the regional center support for employment, the individual needs to have either the high school diploma or the certificate of completion. So it just depends on whatever track that individual is in through their IEP process and what their school kind of has them tracked out on. I'm not sure if that answers that fully.
Well, we'll see. They could always do a follow-up question if it
There
doesn't.
you go.
Thanks.
Yep.
So how is this different from DOR's, Department of Rehab's, paid work experience internship program? And can you use both programs at different times? They may mean the supported employment with DOR? I'm not
I
sure.
think that is what they mean. I mean, I know DOR also has their own internship programs. You can use them at different times, at least in my understanding. And a lot of times people use DOR kind of in that process at the end of school, because those can overlap where you're having some of the work experience through DOR in education. But in order to access the internship and the paid internship funded through Far North or through regional centers, again, you have to have that certificate of completion or the high school diploma.
Okay.
But you can,
Thanks.
I don't think you can do them at the same time, but you can access both at different times. So like if the individual while in school and at the end of school access DOR's paid work experience, and then down the road, once they're done with school and they might have tried some things, but realizing they might need some more help and support, then a referral to a job development agency to see about getting some evaluation to see if they qualify for the internship, or if they might just be able to get a job, but with help and support of a job coach and job development.
Okay, great, thanks. Can a regional center client participate in a day program and a PIP at the same time?
As far as I know, up to at least up at Far Northern, we have a handful that do. In fact, a handful where they go to their day program, and then either it's near their place of employment, so that it's kind of worked into their day program. However, the hard thing is the day program can't be paid for them to be there, obviously, when they're not there working at their internship. So it just depends on if a day program's willing to not be paid for the full time that they could be paid for a participant.
Or I suppose
However, up here we have lots that are totally game for all of it, because they're just so stoked that everyone's out working. So I think that would again be something you have to ask your regional center in that day program. But if all the parties are on board, then that can't happen. Yeah.
And perhaps even if the day program is until 3, maybe the paid internship program can be after that, or on weekends or something, depending on what can be arranged with all the players.
Yep.
And can the individual find an employer who is open to trying it and have them contact the regional center to understand the program?
Definitely. Find an employer who's open to trying. I would say, I mean, they can talk to the regional center, but also talking to the job development agency, because they do a lot more of the specifics of what the ways that they hands-on are in the employee and the place of employment to help support. But they could totally talk to a regional center person as well. Usually the job development agencies kind of make those connections in the community and facilitate and field a lot of those questions, but it would never hurt to reach out to the employment specialist and kind of get the rundown from the regional center perspective as well.
Okay. And the the job development agency you were talking about, that is the vendor for the regional center who handles the job coaches and potentially the placement and all that kind of thing. Yes.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Someone wants to know what the bonuses are. What are the
I don't know
bonuses
if
paid out
those
for PIP
are,
and CIE? Yeah, I'm not sure I know that
I don't
either.
know if those are different for each regional center. And they vary depending on each one. So that would be something I would say ask your regional center. And those go directly to the job development agency. So it's nothing that's connected to the individual. It's bonuses for the job development agency.
And some folks are asking if we could send the presentation. And yes, we will, either tomorrow or early in the week, next week, we will be sending the presentation. The recording will be up in the PHP e-learning library probably within 3 to 4 weeks. So you will be getting, also, I've dropped a bunch of links into the chat. And actually, I have a question.
Yeah.
The difference between competitive integrated employment and community integrated employment. It's just a little bit of a confusing thing that they use the same acronym for community integrated employment and competitive, because I dropped a bunch of links about competitive integrated employment in the chat. So I don't want to confuse people if they're clicking on that.
More or less the same thing. It's just being competitive in the community.
Okay.
More or less simultaneous. I mean, interchangeable.
All right, great. Thank you. And then also a little bit of confusion about the role of DOR, Department of Rehab, with PIP, but also with CIE. So, if you want to tackle that one.
I was going to say, I'm still learning all of that. I've only been in this role since the middle-ish of summer. I have worked for the regional center for a handful of years before that, but as a service coordinator. So I'm still figuring out exactly how all of those navigate together. Regional centers have what they call a LPA, or a local partnership agreement, where they work with Department of Rehab, the Office of Education, and the regional center, where we kind of try to start teaming up and facilitating the transition of end of education to adult and rest of life. So still have been learning that exactly, just that Department of Rehab and education can be happening at the same time, whereas in order to get the support for employment, the individual has to be done with school.
Okay. And any kind of minimum number of hours per week for a PIP or the community integrated program?
So that kind of depends. Technically, no. However, like for our internship program up here, where we use O2 staffing, there's still those HR rules of the 2-hour shifts. So it just kind of depends on what your employer of record does, and depends on what the place of employment, what kind of they work on. But that's where you have your job development agency that kind of will work with the employer to kind of figure out what their need is and how the individual can fit into that need to support them and also be learning. So, I mean, there's some individuals that, like I said, only work 1 or 2 hours a week, 1 day a week. And then there's individuals that, work up to 20, 30 hours a week. Just kind of depends on the employer of record and if they have rules for their HR side, and then what the employer wants and needs on their end.
Okay. And as is, whenever we have any kind of regional center presentation these days, we get questions about the self-determination program. So how does this program work with the self-determination program? Does the client's budget need to cover the cost of paying for their employment?
So, I mean, it works definitely with self-determination. We have tons and tons. I am not necessarily the self-determination expert. However, my understanding is that then you have employment as one of the needs in the budget, and then that can translate over for what needs to be in their spending plan.
Right. just my personal experience with this, because my daughter is in the self-determination program and she does have a PIP. We are with the Golden Gate Regional Center, full disclosure. So, you know, regional centers may be different, but
Totally.
the PIP is the traditional service. So the, you know, the kind of the income stream and how the employer is paid is part of traditional services.
Yep.
But then there's there's also a fee that's associated with the employer, the PIP, and that is paid out of her self-determination budget. So it took about 4 to 5 months to make all that work, and lots of discussions with the employment specialist and the PIP provider, you know. So bottom line, talk to your service
Talk to your
coordinator
regional center,
or
talk
your
to your service
employment
coordinator.
specialist. Yes,
But they definitely work it out. They, you know, they make sure that that's definitely included in in an option of support. It's just a little bit unique and
right.
but we work with it.
Yeah. I see another Spanish question. I'll wait for Beatrice to translate that for us. Is the school workability funded by the regional center? And I think the answer to that is no.
School workability, I believe, is funded through DOR.
Yes, that's more of a DOR program. Yes. And someone says, sorry if this was already answered, how long can a PIP last? And is an employment development agency always involved, even if a PIP opportunity is offered by a site to a person who has been volunteering to date? Interesting.
So let's answer that first one. So a PIP is 1,040 hours or 365 days. And so kind of what that means is that, like we were talking about earlier, if someone's only working 2 to 6 hours a week, they could potentially work that entire 365 days. From, like, if a person started today, it would run from November 15th, 23 to November 14th, 24. However, if an individual is in their internship program and they're working 30 or 35 hours a week, then they would run through the 1,040 hours quicker than 365 days. So whatever comes first. And then I'm trying to find back where that question went. And then even if in a PIP, so it just depends on it. So the PIP is involved if the or the employment development agency is involved if a PIP is involved. Yes, because they help with the job development and the job coaching, but job coaching doesn't always have to be involved with the PIP, but the job development agency is the kind of middleman between the employer, the individual being supported, and the regional center.
Okay. And how about
I don't know if that answers that.
I think it did. How about a student who's younger than 18 but has completed a high school equivalency? Would that person qualify for a PIP?
That is a good question.
Yeah.
I would have to go back to the rules and regulations on that. I don't know. I haven't experienced that personally, so I think that would be something you'd have to ask your regional center, because usually usually they just assume 18 and high school diploma at the same time. So I would ask your regional center.
Yeah, your employment specialist, right? And if they start one job in PIP and it doesn't work, can they switch to another job?
Yes, definitely. So that's kind of why I'm assuming for every regional center, but at least on our end, when we do the authorizations on the regional center side, we try to keep the wording so that it's very specific to, like I said, the hours and the dates, so that if there is a transition, that's not setting up a whole new set of authorizations with Sally working at PetSmart, but then if it changes to wherever else, it doesn't need to be changed. So it's just the hours and the support that help with the maintaining of that employment.
And just to again about the slides and the recording, the slides of this presentation will be sent out either tomorrow or early next week. The recording of the presentation will be in the PHP e-learning library within 3 to 4 weeks. Not all of the PHP presentations are in the e-learning library, but this one will be. So you have my word. Must you use a job coach selected by the job development agency, or can you use one of the staff they already know, for example, from a supported living agency?
Again, that's up here. You totally can do that. I'm not exactly sure how every regional center does their program, but that was one of the reasons why we use O2 staffing up here as kind of the middleman. So if there is a individual that is able to step in and be a job coach, or let's say like if it's not the supported living agency, someone that they know, but someone at the place of employment that can totally be a job coach that already works there, that knows all the things at that place of employment, you can have that person become their job coach where it's funded through the employer of record, at least up here. Again, every
Yeah.
regional center is a little
Every
different.
regional center different, and every employer is different, because we've run into
Totally.
things where the employer wanted the job coach to have that specific job coach training, which
Right.
is potentially involved when you have the job development agency. So, you know, lots of details, lots of boxes to check off before you get to this.
And I would say that for the folks that we do have that interaction with, that the job development agency is still involved and training the job coach before they kind of pass off the reins for job coaching. So they're pretty hands-on until they feel confident in, like I said, like handing off that role of job coach. And then the job development agency would still be involved as through job development.
And then if the person is determined to not be suited for a PIP or a CIE at any given time, like they're not interested in working potentially, like you were saying, they can try again at another time, right?
Totally. Yep. So, like I said, I feel like there's, I mean, at least in my 6-ish months of being in this role, there's a handful of those where someone's getting out of school, the family or whoever really wants the individual to be working. So we go through the referral process, IDT, start kind of brainstorming and looking into employment. And sometimes they even start in employment and they're like, you know what, dude, not interested right now. And that is totally fine too. And then they could always have a referral again down the line and explore that option, maybe when they're in a different mindset for that, the support and being okay with getting helped in your job. Because sometimes that's the hard thing too, is individuals that don't necessarily, they need the help, but don't want the help. So kind of navigating that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Some confusion between Department of Rehab, what they do, and what the Regional Center PIP program is. The Department of Rehab, I did put that link in the chat. They have a student services program. They have a supported employment program. I don't know if DOR has an internship program. I'm not sure that they do. Do you know, Kathryn?
I think they have a variation of an internship program. I don't know if it's exactly this, but again, that's just my understanding so far. So more or less that DOR can help facilitate supports while an individual is in education. I think usually starting when they're 16 is my understanding. Whereas Regional Center through the paid internship, you can't access that support until 18 and or high school diploma certificate of completion.
Yeah, and I think that the DOR student services start at 16. I'm not sure about the supported employment services. I think that might actually be 18 and above, but don't quote me on that.
Yep, I know there's different parts.
If the individual finished high school and then tried college, but college didn't work, can they still go to this program? And I'm just going to assume here that the individual is a regional center client, because this program only works, PIP, paid internship program, only works with regional center clients.
Exactly. So yeah, so assuming the individual is supported by a regional center and that they have an interest in work and getting help to do so, then totally they can definitely go to school. It doesn't work out. And in fact, we have a lot of those, or we have a lot of individuals who have worked and have had job experience, and then whatever happens, or they've been let go from a variety of jobs, or they've interviewed a handful of times. So the kind of cool thing about the internship is that it can kind of meet you where you're at with how much support or how little support you need. And ideally, a lot of the support is front loaded, whereas skills are learned and confidence built, blah, 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 rapport built with the employer. Job development and job coaching can kind of step back, but still be there as the catch-all when things come up.
Okay. And an interesting
Lots of questions coming in. I love it.
Yeah. We are never at a loss for questions with our Connections California community.
Love it.
what about, does the individual have to pay taxes and fill out a W-2 like typical jobs?
Yes. So that's usually where that employer of record is part of that piece, where they're keeping track of their wages, and part of the onboarding process is just like any job where you are earning income, and it's something that is recorded or reported to Social Security.
And we may have covered this, but does the job development agency find the employer who will supervise the client through PIP?
So the job development agency is kind of the matchmaker, if you will, and goes and networks and builds those community connections to try to, again, there's the whole idea of customized employment is trying to find these exact matches where there's an employer that has a need for a task or a skill that a lot of our individuals are perfect for, and that it meets their needs. However, if you have connections as well, and you get a referral and work with the job development agency, that never hurts to say that, I know so and so that runs this place, and my kiddo grew up there, and that might be a place that they're comfortable and safe to explore, or not. So
Yeah,
definitely doesn't hurt.
yeah. And just like with the regional centers, like Kathryn said, 21 regional centers, 22 different ways of doing things. DOR regional offices deal with things differently. And the other part of that question was, what about the DOR paid work program? DOR told us the client had to find a place of their own. So DOR also has vendors who are job development agencies that they work with. And I guess just depending on the DOR and the agreement they have with their job development agency, whether or not that job development agency is going to work in the community and try and find those placements. Right. That's just a question you ask your DOR person. How about can the client attend community college full-time and participate in PIP part-time?
Sure. Of course.
No reason why not if they want to for it, right?
That'd be awesome. Just assuming that there is a employer that can work with that schedule, which everyone is hiring right now, so everyone's just super excited when there's people that want to work. So definitely.
And is there a choice of job development agencies for a PIP within a regional center?
Obviously, that totally depends on where you live. Far Northern's a quite small regional center that covers a very, very big population that has a lot of counties that are very rural. So in those counties, Siskiyou, Plumas, Modoc, there might only be one job development agency that services or is able to support there. So in that case, you would probably be going with whatever agency there is available. However, in more populated areas, like just in our catchment area in Redding and Chico, there's usually 2 or 3 different agencies that you can choose from. So it just depends.
And what happens if the individual is in the middle of moving to a different regional center? Will the intake process be allowed to go forward for the receiving end? If you've already started and you're in midway, but I would think that you're working with a different job
you're kind of going to be
and you're going to start all over again. That's what I would think.
Because when you move, because if you're moving to a different regional center, your case, the individual's open case would close at that regional center once it gets transferred and opened in the other regional center. So with that, all the authorizations are closed out through that regional center, and you would start at the next regional center. And it'd be lovely if they could transition, but you'd be working with different job development agencies and probably a new place of employment as well. So
right. And how about this? If the client has a history of behavioral issues, can they be accompanied by their SLS staff along with the job coach from the job development agency?
Again, probably a case-by-case basis. I know we have an individual up here who works at Walgreens that has their SLS staff with them. But he's been doing really, really awesome. So I'm pretty sure that SLS staff now has kind of stepped in as the job coach. But I think that would be what you'd have to make sure that the employer is okay with 2 individuals working with one individual. and just kind of, again, the case by case basis, and make sure that the support needs, but ideally, if that's the support that we need to keep this individual successful in employment and get them out exploring and learning, then hopefully that would just be one of the barriers that you'd be working with to find a place that is able to work with that.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the job coach responsibilities, I think on one of Kathryn's slide did say emotional regulation,
Yep.
or helping
Mhm.
with emotional
Mhm.
control or something like that.
Facilitating all those unique needs for sure. Mhm.
Yeah. Would the regional center client receive a list of jobs they could potentially choose? Ha, that'd be wonderful. Or does the client share their interests with the job development agency and the regional center, and then they find something that would suit them? Well, ideally.
So there's been a really big shift in the ideology of job development, especially with individuals that regional centers serve. It used to be where there was like, we've got a connection at Salvation Army, Ace Hardware, blah, 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 and here's the only places we put people. However, now the shift has been to what they call customized employment, which is a whole entire other world. And I'm not even going to pretend like I'm an expert on that because I'm still learning all the steps of that. But the idea of customized employment, and a very, very general idea, is exactly kind of the second part of that, where the job development agency works to match the interest that an individual has with a place of employment that has a specific need, or something that it's almost like a puzzle piece, where they're filling a need or support, and then the individual is also able to do something that they really like. So trying to move away from the list of jobs and trying to make things very, very customized and specific to each individual and their wants, likes, and needs.
Okay, a couple of questions about what happens after the PIP ends. You've used the 1040 hours or the 365 days, and the employer doesn't want to hire the individual. Can the individual start a new one? Just what happens at the end?
So there's been a lot of back and forth on that. So yes, they can have a new one. Ideally, like we said, the goal of an internship is to get community integrative employment. DDS has kind of gone back and forth on that. And I know up here, we're really trying to transition to internships at the same place, shouldn't be continual internships. That being said, again, that would kind of be a regional center specific things. I would ask your regional center when you're going through the PIP exactly what their rules are.
Okay. I think we talked about how long each internship
Mm-hmm.
is. Centers for Independence, do they also administer the PIP program? And that answer is no, they don't. It's through the regional centers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does the job development agency, is it their responsibility to provide training for skills if a person wants a certain kind of job but doesn't have those job skills?
Not necessarily. But that can be something that they could help support an individual doing, or use the paid internship to get experience doing those things. Like I've got a guy right now who's in an internship working specifically with a lot of like computer tech things, and he needs to have some, I don't remember what it is, a specific certification in order for him to be more hireable, if you will. So he's using his internship to do a lot of local computer fixing to earn money to take the certification course. So he's kind of doing hand in hand, where he's having the they're, I think, titling it as self-employment, where he's working as a computer tech, earning income, getting experience, and then getting that certification. So you can be a little bit flexible with that. Again, just depending on what your regional center and the job development agency you work with is able to work with you.
Okay. And how does the PIP income relate to Social Security's earned income guidelines?
So, and that's just a whole other
That's a whole nother presentation.
Every individual has a different Social Security level that they're at. So I would say when you're kind of starting to look into the paid internship program, going to Social Security and kind of getting the amounts that that individual is able to earn without their benefits being impacted, and kind of figuring out what that line is for you. I know a
It
lot
is
of job
income.
development.
It
Yep.
is income, though. It is
Yep.
definitely considered income. So the Social
Oh,
Security
sorry,
has
I read
their,
that. I heard that wrong. Yes,
yeah,
it is income.
yeah, they definitely have their guidelines with, you're allowed $60 of it, and then it's like, $1 per what you make, they take off of your
Yep.
Social Security income. So there is a whole, we have in the e-learning library lots of information on SSA, Social Security Administration, and supplemental security income, and Social Security disability income. So just check out all of those, but it's definitely PIP income is income.
Yep,
So
exactly.
it needs to
Sorry,
be
I totally
reported.
read that wrong.
That's
Yes,
that's
it's
okay. No
reported
worries.
to the Social Security as reportable income for sure.
Um, must everyone have an interview, and who does the interview? The job development agency or the employer?
That kind of depends, but usually the employer, with the help of the job development agency, is primarily what happens. But it depends on your employer and what they are wanting to do. If an employer works with a job development agency and knows and trusts them, I know we have a handful here that do that because it's a smaller area where everyone knows everyone, and they'll kind of have like a meet and greet, but not necessarily as formal of an interview. However, we really recommend that the more traditional route of employment, with an interview, with a resume, with a person-centered profile, whatever they want to attach to the resume, they totally can. But definitely, usually the employer does some sort of interview with the help and support of the job coach and job development agency.
Okay, I think we did that one. Oh, I'll answer that. We answered that.
There's a lot on there. Yep.
I think that one of the slides did give examples of the types of jobs through this
Yep.
program, but maybe just to speak to skill levels. Does this program have options for functionally nonverbal young adults?
Totally. Again, it just depends on finding your employer where there's tasks and skills and needs that the individual can do. Like I said, that the one individual that is at Walgreens that has his SLS worker, and I think Ann had a job coach, but now the SLS workers as kind of steps in as the job coach, is nonverbal, but and they actually allow him to wear his noise canceling headphones, and he loves getting things straightened on shelves and lining things up and making sure that things are forward facing. And so that is part of his job skills that he does. I think he's there 2 hours a day, 3 or 4 days a week, and looking to add another day because he just loves it so much. So it's, again, the magic is when you've got a job development agency that is able to understand the individual's likes, skills, and match those with an employer that has a need for a specific task like that. So that's when things have been more successful, at least in my experience.
Okay. A few questions about just interviewing, and if the person has difficulty with interviewing, with the soft skill of interviewing. Is that something the employment development agency job coach would work with them with before they go out into the community?
Definitely. I mean, every job development agency, that's going to be kind of their precursor, whatever they call it, pre-employment training, prep academy, social skills assessment. There's different names that every job development agency uses. And there's a handful of different trainings that DDS has been in support of for different agencies around that are getting connected with different job development agencies that work on all those, meeting the individual, or like kind of coaching for the employer to meet the individual where they're at with whatever needs, helps, or supports that entails. And that's another part of the job development process, that they're kind of that middleman to help facilitate, advocate, and kind of make the needs known and figure out I don't like using necessarily the word accommodation, but what things need to happen to make the individual more successful.
People are asking a couple of questions
Mhm.
about has anyone approached big tech industries like Apple, Google, Tesla to do a paid internship program? And I don't know the answer to that question.
I know
Kathryn
that
works in Northern California.
we just had a training actually from Meristem that's out in Sacramento, and
Oh yeah.
he's really plugged in with a ton of big agencies. I think he's with Google and with Apple, and has different individuals where they've used internship to get community integrative employment. Yeah, I don't know exactly what their process was, but he definitely used some of those examples in the training that we did in October. So
Okay. And I did promise everyone, and if people come to these trainings before, I like to start on time and end on time. So we have 1 minute left. And let's talk about transportation. Is transportation at all built in to a PIP? Always a $20 million question.
transportation is our biggest barrier.
Yeah, to
More than
everyone.
behaviors, more than all the things.
Yeah.
But so that's definitely a part and an aspect that the job development agency, the service coordinator, and at those IDT meetings, getting everyone all at the same table to brainstorm the best way to support that, whether it be transportation that's funded through the regional center, through whatever transportation supports they have, or bus passes, or whatever they have, or Uber, or whatever, depending on every individual. So I would say, again, that's kind of a case by case at your IDT meeting, working with your service coordinator to see what supports are available in your area, and then with the job development agency, what supports they have, and your family network and resource to see what things are available there as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kathryn. I'm going to jinx it and see if my camera, it's not working. I was going to say I was going to jinx it and see if my camera will work.
It's the camera,
And
man.
it's not. Yeah.
Every once in a while.
But thank you so much, Kathryn, for joining us this evening and giving us such a great presentation, and then also fielding all those questions. We really, really appreciate it. I think a lot of people learned a lot this evening. And thank you, Beatriz, as always, for your expert Spanish interpretations, getting lots of, as you see, lots of clapping,
Yeah.
lots of thumbs up, lots of hearts. Thanks so much to everyone out there for joining us this evening. And please do check out the rest of the fall calendar. We have a few more things going on, and then the spring calendar will be out in January. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
guys. Have a good night.